Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? So, I'm I'm pretty good, and just chilling in the middle of a hurricane, and figure well, it's a tropical storm now, I guess. It's a tropical storm now, I guess. So, I'm thinking we build for a deck that I was working on a couple weeks ago, and I just kind of stopped working on it. It's a black white clerics deck. I want it to be mostly land based, actually, but I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. I have already like a bunch of creatures that I really like so far, like Containment Priest, so that I can mess with token decks, or I mean with cheat decks that cheat out creatures without casting them. Um, Hunwer Militia and its flip side, which is Westville Cult Leader, makes tokens. We've got Skursdeg High Priest, makes tokens. We've got Extricator of Sin, also makes tokens and flips. Oh, come on. It flips into Extricator of Flesh, which is pay 2 and sacrifice a non-Eldrazi to make a 3/2 Eldrazi, so we can turn tiny tokens into big tokens. And also, it gives all of our Eldrazi vigilance, including itself, which is pretty sweet. We have Liliana Heretical Healer, a human cleric. She's a 2/3 lifelinker. Whenever another creature we control dies, non-token creature we control dies, we exile her, and then we put her back in the battlefield, flipped as a planeswalker, and she gives us a zombie. Her planeswalker is pretty solid. She makes it so that each player discards a card. Return target non-legendary creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So solid grave return. And you get an emblem with whenever a creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Yeah, it doesn't say creature you control dies. That's a pretty solid ult. She's also got a +2, so she's a 4-turn walker. We've got Mavrin Fane, Dusk Apostle. Whenever one or more non-token vampires you control attacks, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. So he's pretty good at just making a dude on his own merit. We don't have very many other vampires in this deck as it stands, so he just generates a token every time he attacks, which is fine. Yeah, that's pretty good. Righteous Valkyrie. Whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So she's kind of like Tristani in a way, but only for clerics and angels. And as long as I have 7 life more than my starting life total, all my creatures get a +2/+2 anthem. That's already pretty solid considering she's a lightning bolt proof 2/4 flyer for 3. We have Taborax, the antithesis of this Righteous Valkyrie here, a demon cleric. He has lifelink as long as he has 5 or more +1/+1 counters. Whenever another non-token creature I control dies, put a 1/1 counter on Taborax. If it was a cleric, I also draw a card and lose a life. So he's cleric tribal demon that likes the fact that we have a lot of clerics. Custody Soulbinder enters with a number of counters on it and equal to the number of creatures we control, and then you can remove those counters to make spirits with flying. Pretty solid cleric. Combat Calligrapher is flying, has inklings, can't attack me or planeswalkers I control, and whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, so literally anybody that isn't me attacks somebody that isn't me. No, if anybody attacks somebody that isn't me, they get a 2/1 inkling creature token with flying that's attacking that opponent. So basically, so long as I can keep this guy on the board, the inklings can't attack me, and it incentivizes people to attack other players. I like him. I like incentivizing people to not attack me. I think it's gonna be less of a. It's gonna be more like a cleric combat. Cleric combat control is kind of like what I think I'm looking for here, because a lot of my clerics make tokens, and I can kind of control how combat works. Alms Collector is really good. Flash is an amazing thing to have. We already have it with Containment Priest. I don't know if there's any other clerics with Flash. I haven't finished looking through all the clerics yet. But I also have Thraben Doomsayer. Creates tokens. Fateful Hour. Other creatures I control get +2/+2. So I have one at the top end of if I have more than 40 life, and I have one at the bottom end with if I have 5 or less life. God help me. He's so bad in EDH. But he's a cleric, so I'm using him. New boy, Draugr Necromancer here. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile that card with an ice counter on it. So basically, I'm going to create a little creature sickle over there. And then I may cast spells from among cards in exile that my opponents own with ice counters on them. And I may spend mana from snow sources as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. So in other words, he's the reason I'm going to be running a bunch of snow lands. Like, I'm probably not going to run much of any other snow type stuff, but he's the reason I'm running snow lands. Aura Skyclave Hierophant. Lifelink, whenever Aura or another cleric dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from my graveyard to my battlefield. So he's kind of like a scrap trawler, actually. I might be able to abuse that. Cause yeah, that can be really good. I have to look through more clerics to see if I have any clerics that would resurrect other than what's his name? I use it in like every tribal deck I've ever built, but I can't remember its name. Gravedigger? I think it's Gravedigger. No. Gravedigger is the zombie one. I need the changeling one. The changeling one is... Actually, I can look it up. Black, white. I mean, I know it's black. Grave Shifter. Clerics overall are relatively cheap, but oh, look, it pops up right next to the Draugr Necromancer and Aura. But basically, it counts as every creature type, so it counts as a cleric or an angel for any purposes I have with clerics or angels or humans or whatever this deck may do. And it says you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So him and Aura with Death Render, this is a Death Render loop, is Grave Shifter and having Aura on the battlefield and any other cleric in a sack outlet. So I'm just going to add Death Render to the deck already. I'll get to Death Render since I'm adding it now. It's in the artifacts, which are near the bottom. But another cleric I run is Priest of the Bloodright. 5 mana for a 2/2 human cleric. Whenever Priest of the Bloodright enters the battlefield, I create a 5/5 black demon. I'm incentivized to want to kill this guy because I slowly lose life every time he stays around for a turn. So I'm going to want to kill him and bring him back over and over and over again. As cruel as that may sound. I'm going to look for other clerics that specifically work on the graveyard, I think. Because I need to be able to sack and I need Sacrifice and Resurrection. I've got Extricator of Sin as well, who's a sack outlet, but yeah. So it's gonna be like an Aristocrats combat control deck, I think. I've never made a deck like this before, so it should be interesting. Next up is Thalise, Reverent Medium. At the beginning of each end step, create an X/1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you created this turn. So, yeah, she's the one who's incentivizing me to make an ass load of tokens. And then Valkyrie Harbinger. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 4 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 angel token with flying and vigilance. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. So long as I can gain life, which Righteous Valkyrie gains me life. I've got lifelink on at least 2. Yeah, I've got lifelink on at least 2 of my other clerics. And I can probably figure out other ways to gain a little bit of life, because I also have Timna, who's got lifelink. So yeah, there's definitely, and he makes vampires with lifelink. Oh yeah, I can manage getting some life out of this deck. Alright, on to the artifacts. See, I told you I'd get to the artifacts. Ashnod's Altar. Sacrifice a creature, get 2 colorless mana. Phyrexian Altar. Sacrifice a creature, add a mana of any color. Relic Vial. Sacrifice a creature, draw a card. As long as you control a cleric, Relic Vial has whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So also incentivizing me to kill my creatures over and over again. Deathrender is gonna allow me to loop Aura and Graveshifter. He returns to the battlefield. He returns to the hand. Oh, so actually, if both of these are on the... Oh no, this is lesser convert mana. Oh, I need one that's smaller than Graveshifter. Because I can't return Graveshifter. Oh well, we'll find one. But I can still figure out a loop with Deathrender. Like, I can at least get massive value of drawing cards somehow, probably. Now, the enchantments, I think, are where this deck is going to become, like, absolutely crazy. Because, 1, enchantments are the hardest type of permanent to get rid of. So, that's already... Yeah, I think they're the hardest permanent type to get rid of overall. Especially since they've been making more stuff to kill planeswalkers specifically. So, we'd have, like, the easiest to get rid of, I'd say, are creatures. Then the second easiest are artifacts. Planeswalkers are their 3rd place now. Lands, I think, are next. And then enchantments. No, enchantments then lands, I think. Because lands, they've recently stopped making a lot of land destruction. Or at least the land destruction replaces the land with, like, a basic or a strictly worse version of it somehow. Like, imagine if they made a land destruction card that replaced the lands you destroyed with treasures. Actually, that'd be pretty cool. I'd use that. As long as it said target player and not target opponent, I'd use that. Because I'd want to be able to use it on myself. Like, destroy all your non-basics and turn them into treasures. That could end up being, like, a freaking... Mana Geyser-esque card. Would be pretty sick. Because they already have cards like Mana Season. But I'm getting off topic. I'm talking about other stuff. The enchantments in this deck are Cunning Rhetoric, which says whenever a player attacks me, attacks you and or one of my planeswalkers, exile the top card of that player's library, and I may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and I may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. Since it's all one ability that triggers, that means the card, even once Cunning Rhetoric is gone, is still usable by you. I run monologue tax so that I can get a little bit of value out of people who want to use multiple spells in a turn. Anointed Procession doubles my tokens, as you saw from, like, a lot of my creatures make tokens. Court of Ambition. This one makes me the monarch, for 1. And 2, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose 3 life unless they discard a card. It's 6 life and 2 cards if I am still the monarch by the rotation. Court of Grace. Whenever Court of Grace enters the battlefield, I become the monarch. But it makes 1/1 white soldier creature tokens if I'm not the monarch, and if I am, it makes angels. But we'll get to why that's kind of funny later, because I have a card that negates that first part. We have Dramatic Finale, which gives all my creature tokens +1/+1, and whenever one or more non-token creatures I control dies, I create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. So basically, it turns all of my creatures into Inklings when they die, and then all of those Inklings are now 3/2 bastard men with flying. Oh, I can only trigger it once per turn. Oh well, it gives me a huge amount of Nykthos mana for white or black. Smothering Tithe, Punish draws along with Alms Collector. so I can kind of keep people moving at my pace. And then Divine Visitation. If one or more creature tokens will be created under my control, I create that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance instead. So all of those token generators that make tiny tokens or make a lot of like tokens, yeah, Divine Visitation makes it so that all those tokens become angels, and all of those angels will trigger Righteous Valkyrie, and that'll trigger Valkyrie Harbinger, and it's brutality on a scale hitherto unheard of. And then lastly, the card that made me want to make this deck, Westvale Abbey. Because for all the pomp and circumstance that this deck is, I just wanted the Secret Commander to really be Ormondal the Profaned Prince. And I might even put Withengar the Unbound in here, just to, yeah. I just really want to get a Withengar trigger. I don't even care that it's so expensive. Like 7 mana for a +1/+0, and then equip cost 1. So you need 8 mana to play and use this all in one turn. But my god, is it worth it? I should probably show you for those of you who don't know. This is Elbrus the Binding Blade, and the reason it's $5 for a 7 mana +1/+0 equipment is that it transforms into this bad boy. Withengar Unbound. A flying, intimidate, trample, 13/13. Whenever a player loses the game, put 13 +1/+1 counters on Withengar Unbound. It's one of my favorite cards to ever come out of Innistrad. It's actually a Dark Ascension card, I think. Yeah. So, fun fact. So that's the baseline of the deck as it stands right now. So I want Clerics. And Graveyard. Let's do this by mana value. We want cards that let us pull from the graveyard. Sacrifice 3 Clerics, search your graveyard hand in a library for a card named Scion of Darkness. I don't have Scion of Darkness. I don't think I want to run Scion of Darkness. I should probably look up what Scion of Darkness is. It's probably not worth it. Whenever Scion of Darkness deals combat damage to a player, you may put target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield. Oh. I gotta sacrifice 3 Clerics to get that bad boy? Is it a battlefield? And put it into play. Maybe. Makes it a sack outlet. No, not yet. Dawnbringer Cleric enters the battlefield. Gain 2 life, destroy target enchantment, exile target from your graveyard. Nope. Geist of the Lonely Vigil. Geist of the Lonely Vigil can attack as though it didn't have Defender if you have Delirium. Null Priest of Oblivion. Got a kicker. Menace Lifelink, enters the battlefield, was kicked. Oh, I like that. Return things from the graveyard. I love that. I mean, granted, it requires the kicker to do that, but I still like that because it means I can put it in my hand off of a Grave Sifter and be able to cast it again with the kicker. A little slow, but you know, we're going with Clerics here. Plus, Menace Lifelink for a 2 mana 2/1 is not too terrible, considering we want to have that early game body presence. Whenever Sanctifier and Vec enters the battlefield, exile all cards that are black or red from all graveyards. That's already a big old nope. We run a lot of black creatures. Doomed Necromancer's a cleric? Sweet. Sacrifice Doomed Necromancer, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At this rate, I'm going to put 1,000-Year Elixir in. I actually have some sacrifice effects that require tapping. Like, I'm pretty sure... Yeah, that's a sack effect. A tap effect. I don't think I run a lot of... He's Discouraged Act's a tap effect. So, we'll add the boots. And the greaves. Just in case. This deck's probably not going to have a lot of ramp in it. Mostly color fixing stuff. No, Elf Cleric only returns elves. Custody Soul Caller. It's got melee. Whenever it attacks, return target creature card with convert mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. X is the number of players who attacked with a creature this combat. So that lets me bring back up to 3 drops back from my graveyard. I like that. Custody Soul Bonder. Soul Caller. The Custody are looking to be like some pretty solid cards here in this deck. A little sub-theme of them. Monk Idealist gets me back enchantments from my graveyard. I don't care about my enchantments enough for that. I don't cast much from my graveyard. Draugr Recruiter is Boast, pay 4. Not a fan. Entomber Exarch's a Cleric. Oh, beautiful. And now I have a loop. It's Graveshifter and Entomber Exarch combo. And Aura lets me input Aura on top of that, and I can loop anything CMC. I can pull anything CMC 3 or less back from my graveyard to the board over and over again. I like that. Whisper's a Cleric? And Tishar is a Cleric? Oh, this deck is going to be sweet. Is Bishop of Rebirth worth it? 5 mana. Drawn of the Last Blood Chief? Yes. You may, whenever it attacks, may return target creature card with mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Ace Ferja, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, look at the top 3 cards. She says second spell each turn. I'm less likely to get that, but Pillar Drop Rescue into the battlefield. Return target creature card with mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Custody Squire. Will the council enters the battlefield starting with you? Each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes or tied for the most votes to your hand. Yeah, a little too dependent on my opponents. Never another creature enters the battlefield under your control. Sanctuary Souls gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Exile a creature card. I think Ferja makes it just because Flying Lifelink is great. And I do run a decent number of low costs. Oh, I love that art. That's so cool. Okay. I think that's it for any creatures above 4. Like, now I look for cards that specifically talk Cleric. I don't actually care about Clerics. I want Clerics matter. Which means I'm probably gonna get a bunch of party stuff. Hi Shar, how you do? Making a black-white Clerics deck. Just looking to see all these priests, what they can do. Currently, I'm looking for cards that matter with Clerics, so... Or at least make Cleric tokens, maybe. Do something with Clerics. Whenever another Cleric enters the battlefield under control, I gain a life. Whenever I gain life the first time each turn, put a ++1 counter on it. Clerical Life Split is not bad. And he triggers my vampire guy. And he gains me life. I'll add him for now, because I can always cut later. Cleric of Life's Bond. A lot of these just have Cleric in their name. But this one becomes a land, but it only gains me 2 life when it enters. Not really that worth. Moonblessed Cleric has Divine Intervention and says, whenever Moonblessed Cleric enters the battlefield, I may search my library for an enchantment card, reveal it, then shuffle, put it into my library. Actually, that's pretty good. That's like really good. That a lot of my best cards are enchantments. And she's 3 CMC, so a lot of my things that resurrect 3 CMC or less stuff. Really good here. Okay. I might have to end up going with mostly like low costing equipment and enchantments to supplement this deck instead of like running a lot of instant sorceries. Righteous Valkyrie into Borax, already got him. Or is Heliod worth it? He gives me the ability to make Clerics, and he gives all my stuff Vigilance, but Vigilance is nice, but I don't think it's worth it. Death Pact Angel makes a Cleric, but that's a special type of Cleric, so it doesn't really help me much. And this, again, party. I was hoping there was some kind of equipment for Clerics, but I guess not. Oh, Starlight Sanctum's pretty cool. Is Starlight Sanctum? Starlit Sanctum. Now I kind of just want to look at what I have for... I think for equipment, I want things like Blade of the Animist, Sword of the Animist. Blade of Selves. Maybe I should look up things. Hammer of Nazan. Yeah, I'm gonna look up specifically cards that are like equipment based, because we're gonna have a bunch of kung fu fighting Clerics, I guess. That's Kung Fu Fighting Clerics. I guess quote me on it. Steel Shaper's Gift. Sigarda's Aid. don't think so. I don't think that's worth it. Dancing Sword is interesting. I like that. That's actually really cool. Dancing Sword says equipped creature gets +2/+1, but if that creature dies, you can make the sword become a 2/1 construct artifact creature with flying and ward 1, but then it's no longer an equipment, it's just a straight up creature. But I think that's just really interesting because flying ward 1 means they have to pay an extra 1 to target it, and it can fly over most opponents, so it's like mostly direct damage at that point. Which I'm really like, that's pretty cool. The Forgotten Realm set was like a very nice breath of fresh air addition to this game. Trying to avoid non-cleric. Kemba's a cleric, so Kemba it is. Everybody was kung fu fighting as fast as lightning. Oh, Kembaka Regent. That's it. That's the last one. That's the last creature I'm adding to this deck. Need more equipment still. Blade of Selves, Sword of the Animus, Death Render. Plate Armor. It's 3 mana. Equip 3. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each other equipment I control. Ooh, no, Halvar. His sword's pretty good. Yeah, that also helps. And he's a god. Guess we're doing battle clerics. So gods are gonna be like the only exception to the all my creatures are clerics, because you know what's a cleric without a god patron? But since I'm a black-white deck, I have to have a black god and a white god. I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I like full sets. I like balance. I like to collect them all. I played a lot of Pokemon in my youth, so it just makes me feel better. Halvar's our white god, but I guess our black god might be like Erebos or something. But we'll see. We'll see. Icing Death becomes an equipment, but I don't really care. Stone Hero Giant lets me equip things. Mantle of the Ancients enchant when it enters the battlefield. Return any number of target or equipment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to an enchanted creature. That's pretty crazy. Attach any number of auras and equipment you control to other creatures you control. Get +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to Heavenly Blade Master. Flying Double Strike's pretty solid. But I think that's it for looking through here. Sigarda's Aid. I think I'm just gonna run Sigarda's Aid. And I want a few more low-cost equipments. So we're gonna go through all of the equipment in Magic the Gathering that work for this deck. Started from the bottom. I'll actually probably I can actually think of a few already off the top of my head that I'll probably want to add. Mostly ones that make tokens or protect my creatures. It's been a while since I've made an equipment deck, so let's see. These are the 1-drop ones so far. Commander's Plate is actually worth running here. I'm less than 3 colors, so I have the majority of magic colors. The majority of the magic colors are actually on my side here, because Commander's Plate is pay 1 for equipment that gives +3/+3 and protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. Which basically means, since my color identity is black-white for this deck, I am immune to red, green, and blue when the creature's equipped. And since I have 2 commanders, it means I can equip this to either one of them for 3 mana, and then any other creature for 5 mana. Which is pretty good, considering like I can just have it sitting there from turn 1, which means I'll eventually have the mana to equip it at any given time. Like, it's a 4 mana investment to equip it immediately to my commander, and a 6 mana investment if I want to equip it to anything else. I think that's pretty solid. And for those of you who don't know what protection is, protection basically says the creature cannot be targeted, cannot be damaged, cannot be destroyed by. There's like 4 things. I can't remember all of them because it's one of those weird mechanics that was worded before they started getting good at really wording things. Medusa's head. Gorgons, everybody. It's pretty solid. I was debating on there's a better one with Basilisk Collar in my opinion because it gives lifelink and death touch. But I don't know if I want it just because it doesn't give power, evasion, or protection. Just lifelink, death touch. Which some people would say death touch is evasion because death touch kills any creature that is dealt damage by a creature or spell with death touch. I don't know if you can give spells death touch yet, but it's coming. I can see it. Hot soup. If your creature gets damaged, it dies, but it can't be blocked, so you know. Helm of the Gods might actually be a decent add because I run a decent number of enchantments. I only end up 9 right now, which is like 1/10 of the deck. I'll probably end up with like 12 to 15 enchantments by the end of this process, but I don't think Helm of the Gods is worth it because I don't have any like enchantment creatures really or anything like that. So it ends up being not as worth. Masterwork of Ingenuity. If I'm gonna have this density of equipment, Stoneforge. Yeah, Stoneforge Masterwork also works here. I went Masterwork of Ingenuity, but yeah, both of these are great here. Masterwork of Ingenuity can copy any equipment, and Stoneforge Masterwork gives +1/+1 to the equipped creature for each other creature that shares a creature type with it. So like, I make human tokens, so I can equip it to a human cleric, and he'll get +1 for each human, and then +1 for each cleric. I have a couple vampire clerics. This is a human elf cleric. Eldrazi Horror was once a cleric. Vampire cleric, human cleric. Well, human soldier becomes a human cleric, vampire cleric. Yeah, you get the picture. I have a lot of clerics. Neglected heirloom would be nice, but I don't transform many things, so it would sit there and do nothing most of the time. I should probably start looking into things that draw me cards. Skull Clamp is very much the one. Skull Clamp gives +2/+1, and when equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. Or I'm sorry, +1/-1. So when you equip it, 1/1s would die. Anything with 1 toughness would die when you equip Skull Clamp. But on the bright side, you get to draw 2 cards. So it becomes pay 1, sack a creature, draw 2 cards. Vorpal's Sword, +2/+1 and has Death Touch. Okay already. Pay 8 until end of turn. Vorpal Sword gains. Oh. Whenever your equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. I mean, to be blunt about it, I like the word loses the game. The Black Blade Reforged is generally never a bad equipment. And Inquisitor's Flail keeps people from messing with us on our turn. Oh no, not Inquisitor's Flail, Conqueror's Flail. I don't know what else I'm looking for in equipment. Like, I guess Hexproof would probably be. I could run Nim Deathmantle. I have to figure out a way to make 4 mana every time a creature dies, though, to keep looping it. So I don't know if it's worth it. Who am I kidding? I need other ways to loop. Okay, I think that's it for equipment. In terms of... Ooh, Seraphic Gravesword. What do you do? Equipped creature gets +2/+2 whenever equipped creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life. I create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. It's tapped and attacking that player. 6 total investment for it, though. Which means you play it turn 3, you can equip it turn 4. Too slow. Oh, okay. I think I've seen enough for equipment. I really only wanted to get to like 3 CMC for equipment. Now we can look over enchantments. And specifically enchantments that affect combat. Oh, I never set my colors again. I wish I could make an account so I can hold my settings on Scryfall. I really do. It's like the one thing I would love for Scryfall to have is the ability to save the settings that I want to look for things for. But I think that's just me being greedy. Brave the Sands doesn't deflect combat. I want things that maybe I should say instead of combat, attack. Yeah, I think that's a better way of looking at this, because is Paladin class worth it here? It's 1 mana for the initial ability, which is casting spells on my turn, costs 1 more, so it's more expensive for my opponents. creatures I control get +1/+1. Could be detrimental. Whenever you attack until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 for each other attacking creature in double strike. That's very aggressive. I'm not entirely opposed to it. Let's see what else we got. Dreadhorde Invasion makes a zombie army. It's a little Night of the Living Dead. Honestly, this deck does feel kind of like the Black Order Char, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'd say it's Thanos, but we got, like, the head is this blind lady who loves spiders, and this Greek Adonis guy who's floating in the night sky. So, like, yeah, we woke up and chose violence today, because this deck is very, like, aggressive, and also doesn't respect death. All of my creatures will just come back eventually. If there's blotches on them, it's probably because of the chroma key. Yeah. Because I have a chroma key to the background. So if whatever color matches the background that I chroma keyed, or is close enough that it registers, then it might disappear a little bit. Just a fun little fact about OBS that I use. It can't sometimes recognize the difference in shades of color, or sometimes just two colors on top of each other create that shade, and that's just how you have to deal with it. But I think the epic background is worth the slight inability to read. But I've tried to fix it. This is the best and most readable I've gotten it in weeks. But, you know, we accept it because I want the cool looking background, so I'm willing to make that sacrifice for the cool looking background. I want enchantments. Attacking pests, whenever a non-token creature I control. I could use Blight Mound to generate more creatures upon death. Just make more tokens. Also, it gains me. They also gain me life when they die. So I guess Blight Mound's not a bad one. True facts worth it. Yeah, so this deck makes a lot of tokens, and because it makes a lot of tokens, I want to make more tokens. I don't think Ghostly Prison's worth it, because I kind of want people to have the illusion of the choice of attacking me, as opposed to forcing them to pay to attack me. Thorough investigation whenever you attack. Sparring regimen enters battlefield. I learn whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature and untap it. Not bad, but not what I'm looking for. Light Minefield. Raider's Wake. Search the premises. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, investigate. I like that. I like making people think they have the choice of attacking me. Search the premises says attack me, and I investigate. Alright, so that's all they have for cards that specifically talk about attacking. I guess I will look into cards that specifically say whenever a creature you control dies. Or not a creature I control dies. My philosophy for making a deck that politics about combat is taxation is the best way to avoid provocation. Nobody likes paying taxes, so make them have to pay something to attack you. Make it not worth attacking you, even if they really, really need to attack you. I'll give you representation. Athreos, god of passage. That's the one. Athreos, god of passage is actually probably one of the best cards I could put in this deck, because it's 3 mana for a 5/4 indestructible legendary enchantment creature god. As long as my devotion to black and white is less than 7, it's not a creature, so it's just an enchantment. Whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. It says another creature you own dies. So even if somebody takes that creature and puts it on their board and then sacrifices it, Athreos will still catch it. And I can pick a person to pay 3 life or put that card back in my hand. Exactly. Taxation is theft, and thus all's fair in love and war. Let's see what other. Promise of Tomorrow. Whenever a creature I control dies, at the beginning of each end step, if you control no creatures, sacrifice Promise of Tomorrow and return all cards exiled with the battlefield. It's an interesting card. I don't know how to feel about it. Okay. Well, most of this deck is permanents, so I guess for the last... I have 4 lands. Let's do some math. If we have 69 cards in the deck right now, 4 of which are lands. So we can go 99 minus 69 leaves us with 30 slots. Okay, I have to start putting lands in this deck now. Because that means... add 4 to that, I will have 34 lands. So I need a bunch of snow lands, command tower, and all that stuff. Faceless Haven. I wonder. I'll look for snow land. Do I run Frostwalk Bastion? Oh, I like Frostwalk Bastion, yeah. We're gonna have some fun snowlands. Snow-covered plains and snow-covered swamps. I think that's really all I want for snowlands, to be honest. Dark Depths is too much mana. I didn't finish that phrase. Of course, as one does, because I'm bad at spelling. Pretty lands are exactly what I'm looking for, pretty lady. I want Search for Glory. Because Search for Glory is pretty solid. Search your library for a snow permanent card, a legendary card, or a saga card. basically lets me get any of my legendary things like Blackblade Reforged, Sword of the Animist, Hammer of Nizan, Elbrus, the Binding Blade, or any of my legendary creatures like Thalis, Furja, Whisper, Teshar, Halvar, Taborax, or Aetherios. Like I have a lot of legendary creatures actually in this deck. There's a card I was gonna add in here because of all the legendaries that lets me like give them all +1/+1 for each legend I control, but that's but that I don't think I have room for that now. Ancient Tomb because an extra mana is never a bad thing. And let's check what color this deck mostly is. Ooh, that's a beautiful little curve there. So the majority of the deck sits between 2 and 4, with the biggest majority between 3 and 4. So my average CMC without lands is 3.13, and my total mana value is 200. So all the cards in my deck in total, if I wanted to cast them all once at the same time, it would take me 200 mana. Which is actually not that hard to do in the grander scheme of Magic the Gathering. But so because of how low to the ground this deck is, I actually don't have to run as many lands as I would in some other decks. So I'm gonna add 14 snow-covered swamp plains and 14 snow-covered swamps. And that leaves me 4 over, so I'll remove 2 of each. And bam, I'm at 34 lands. So, this is the deck we're looking at. The biggest problem I see so far with the way this deck runs is that it very much will run into a wall against any deck that exiles cards from the graveyard. Or it'll run out of steam quickly in its forward momentum because it has a lot of gears that need to turn to make it work, even though it has a lot of internal synergy. So when playing it, you should probably look more toward keeping your tempo and beating face because of all the equipment. Like looking at an average opening hand is like this. I have 2 black mana and a Skursdag High Priest, so this hand's doable. I have a Teshar, Halvar. Halvar's at the side's 2 mana. So actually, yeah, this would be considered a keepable hand because I have things to do in the early game. So I'll try it out. We're gonna go first plains, next turn, swamp, play 2 for Skursdag High Priest. Next turn, didn't get the land, so I want to look at the other side of the card. Yeah, since we can't play it, we might as well get it on the ground. Play the sword. Go next turn. Again, didn't get the land. See, this is the problem with running low land count, is that if you don't have the lands, you may never get them. So we'll equip the sword, making him into a 3/2, and swing my opponents for 3. Next turn. We got the land. Here, that's Hall of Generosity. It's not colored, but I'll take it so that we can drop this Blight Mound and swing for another 3. Next turn, draw. Again, missed the land drop, but we have a 1,000-year elixir. Doesn't really help us here. Don't have a tap. This might be one of the cards that gets cut, just because I don't think I have enough tap effects, just looking around, to make it worth using, and I don't have a tap effect in the command zone, so I'd rather just have regular haste. But, nah, it's turn 6 already, and I have like Okay, actually, I have the ability to play Athreos. My total devotion is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so he's not animated yet. Swing for 3. Move to turn 7. We got a land. Cool. It's also a colorless land, but still pretty good because we have 4 mana. With that 4 mana, we can drop Hammer of Nizan, which auto-equips to the Skurzag High Priest, making him indestructible. Now he's got a hammer and a sword. This is the most dangerous priest that's ever existed currently. He's going to swing in for +2, so 5. Alright, swinging for 5. Next turn. Ah, no Priest of Oblivion. You have Menace and Lifelink, which are really good with these 2 equipment, though, so I'll play you. And I can always sacrifice you to gain life. Swing. Next turn. So turn 8 is like usually what I call terminal. It's a terminal turn. So I would say by this point, if we haven't done anything, we'd probably see a board wipe or the game would be over by turn 9. So I'm going to go back to the deck and make some cuts that I think are necessary. Starting with the 1,000-Year Elixir. And I think Monologue Tax should go too. Because that's not exactly something I care about as much. Yeah, so we can add... I think this deck's mostly white, so we can add a snow-covered plains. That brings us to 35 lands, which I think is more solid than 34 which is an average of 2.53 in our opening hand. So it's halfway above that. Maybe I had a mana rock of some kind. No. I'll cut from my top end. Verja's good card selection, but too far into the late game for me to care, so she's out. Anything that makes me tokens stays. So I think the rest are solid here. Maybe like no 1-mana clerics. So let's add in some early game. I want some spells that say instant speed destroy. Everything. It cost me everything. We want cards that are cheap to use, that say destroy. Specifically, artifacts and enchantments are what we want the most gone. Oh, Fracture sounds great. And I think Anguished Unmaking is also a good one. I'm basically going to add all of the dual colored black-white ones because black and white are the best 2 colors for removal in Magic. white has the ability to permanently get rid of cards with exile effects, and black is known for being able to kill creatures, like, as one of the base functions of its color. So, when you put them together, you get cards that let you destroy damn near anything. Like, Despark, Mortify. I'm gonna have to cut stuff to make sure all these fit, but they're all like instant speed removal of insane levels. Most of the time they're two colored. Wait, I can do that. I can make sure it's black and white. Seems I already got them all. Let's see what we got for sorceries. Vindicate was the one I was looking for. Alright, so now I'm 3 over. Seems I hit the whole playlist. Which means now we have to start cutting cards. Elbrus, you might have to go, because I don't think I can justify you in this deck, my dude. My enchantments are pretty solid where they are, like 1 in 10 being a thing. I don't think I'll ever have the mana to make Vorpal Blade work. This is very low to the ground. It doesn't want to have a lot of mana to do things. Alright, both altars are fine to keep here. So if I'm going to cut one more card, it's probably going to have to be a creature. And it might have to be Whisper. Doom Necromancer is under that 3 CMC, that crucial 3 CMC slot that all of these Grave Returns seem to care about. Ravos doesn't, but like the rest do. Oh, I forgot I even had commanders. I know Blade is nice, but I gotta do what's best for the deck. I don't have a lot of card advantage in this deck. Like, I have to just eke out value from my creatures and beating face. Like, Tymna draws me cards whenever I deal damage to my opponents, but I have to be able to get in to deal damage. Thus, my Clerics matter a lot in terms of how much value I can eke out of each of them. So let's go back and see what we got for an opening hand now. Now that I've cut my like 1/7 drop, my curve is even tighter. And now I'm under 200 for an average CMC value. So in the end, I made the deck slightly faster and more efficient by cutting from the top end. Alright. This hand's got a Faceless Haven, but no other lands, so I want to look at another hand. This one's got a lot of lands, but a Steel Shaper's Gift, so I can look for an artifact. And Relic Vial, so I can... Okay, I'll try this. It's a lot of white mana, so I can't really cast my commanders, but we're going to go Plains into a Steel Shaper's Gift to look for a Sword of the Animist. Since that's the one land I know gets, or the one equipment I know that gets me lands. So next turn, we draw. Sweet. Pay 2. Well, actually, we would wait. We would hold off here. We'd wait because we have a Containment Priest in hand, and Containment Priest has Flash. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So we can wait until they either try to cheat something in this round or until the turn right before ours to sneak Containment Priest onto the board. Now that Containment Priest is on the board, we can move on to our next turn and draw. And now we have something to equip these equipments to. It being a 2/2, I only have 3 mana, so we'll start with the Skull Clamp and equipping it. She's now a 3/1, and I'll swing someone who's open. Next turn. Turn 4, we got another Plains. So we'll play that Plains. Now that we have the 4 mana, we can drop the Sword of the Animist, equip the Priest with the sword, swing, and search for a swamp. Next turn. Now, people are probably going to get sick and tired of our Priest by this point, so somebody probably killed it, and we draw 2 cards. We'll play a swamp for turn. Since we only have 1 black, we can't play the Court of Ambition. But we have 5 mana, which is enough to play one of our commanders. Ravos the Soul Tender. Ravos has flying, gives all of our other creatures a +1/+1 boost, and at the beginning of our upkeep, he can return a creature from our graveyard to our hand. So at the beginning of our turn, he brings a creature back from our graveyard to our hand. We only have 1 creature. So if he can survive the round, move to next turn, we untap, upkeep, get the Containment Priest back, and then draw a card. We have 8 cards in hand because of that, so we'll drop this Swamp. Ravos is on the board right now, so let's not push our luck. We'll drop this here Commander's Plate and equip it for 3. Then we will equip him with Sword of the Animist. So now he's getting +4/+4 and has protection from everything that isn't black and white. So I'll swing for 6. And I will get a swamp to the board. Tapped. Next turn. Now we're on turn 7. This deck doesn't really work on critical mass from the way it's playing. So we just have to try to outvalue our opponents. I think now's a good time to drop the Relic Vial onto the battlefield. And equip Ravos with the Skull Clamp. So now we have the option to sacrifice him and draw a card. And if I control a Cleric, whenever a creature dies, each opponent loses left and I gain life. We're not going to probably ever use it, but you know, I might as well have it. Swing with Ravos, get another swamp. Close it, shuffle. Now, end of somebody's turn, or in response to them trying to put a creature on the board, we're going to Containment Priest. Next turn, I will play a swamp, play a Plains for turn. So now we have 9 mana. And play our other commander, Tymna. Equip her with the Skull Clamp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 mana left up. Let's force their hand. Play a Court of Malice, which makes me the Monarch. And swing in the air with Ravos. Getting yet another swamp. Because we keep drawing all the plains, so you know, might as well. Now we'll move on to next turn. Someone will definitely try to kill Tymna. Oh, actually, before we move on to the next turn, Tymna would make me lose a life, draw a card off of her ability when I hit someone. Then if somebody killed her, she'd go back to the command zone. I'd draw 2 cards. Then we move to next turn. So yeah, this is a very slow, grindy deck that doesn't really interact with its opponents much. So I'd say that it probably needs more big draw style cards, or more card selection, maybe tutors, and then maybe more forward momentum. I don't know how to give it more forward momentum because it's black white and it's trying to do creature beats, but best I could say is probably condense the mana costs even more. Try to bring it from being mostly 3 and 4 drops to being mostly 3 and 2 drops, or bring the 4 drops down to equal out to where the 2 drops are. So I think there's just slightly too many 4 drops in the deck. So I might get rid of Dramatic Finale just because it doesn't let me really abuse it as much as I would like. So that cuts a 4 drop out of the deck, so I can add another 2 drop. What would I even add for a 2 drop in here? I'd probably want something that gets me lands. Yeah, I did get a lot further than the last time there. Maybe Blot Out the Sky, because I can destroy non-creature, non-land permanents with it. But Big Expel, if I'm going to go Big Expel, I could just go Torment of Hailfire. I'm gonna look at the top, see what I've got for black white. Look at the top cards. Start with a low CMC value. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You gain life equal to the greatest power among creature cards put into your graveyard this way. It's not bad. Demure Machinations, actually pretty solid. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. I think Ransack the Lab might be the best one. Just because it's low cost. Steel Shaper searches, Search for Glory searches. Ransack the Lab. Because, I mean, if I was looking for just straight up search your library for cards, I could find them in black and white. Like, I want instants and sorceries that say search in black and white. I can find them for sure. It's a matter of are they worth it? Yeah, a lot of them like can search me for any card, but I actually want more creatures below 4 CMC slot. But it's getting there, it's getting there. This is the hard part with building the deck, is cutting the cards you think are really, really sweet for the cards you know you need. Greed versus need. The age-old question. Which makes me think I may not need this Nim Death Mantle, just because I've also got Hammer of Nizan with freaking Death Render, so Death Render I think is just the better one because you don't have to pay to use its ability. Maybe I run Panharmonicon because I have so many ETBs. So Panharmonicon is an artifact that's 4 mana, and it says if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent I control to trigger, that triggers a second time. So if a creature entering the battlefield would cause, say, one of my enchantments to go off, which I don't think I have any that. I think I double trigger Divine Visitation though. And I double trigger Anointed Procession as well. So, okay. Yeah, basically, ETB triggers are enter the battlefield triggers. And enter the battlefield triggers are some of the best things in the game because as soon as your card resolves and hits the board, your ability goes off. I also have a lot of cards that trigger that, like most of my creatures do the double trigger with Panharmonicon as well. Like Cleric of Life Bond would give me 2 life. What else do we got? If I paid the kicker on this, it would double trigger, which means I get 2 creatures back from the graveyard. Who else do we got? Extricator of Sin would give me a double trigger on I may sacrifice another permanent, which means I could sacrifice 2 permanents and get 2 Eldrazi. I think I gotta get rid of Kemba here, just because I think Kemba's not conducive to what I'm trying to get at with this deck. Like, I have a lot of equipment, but I don't think Kemba's gonna end up equipped all that often. I have better things to equip than it. But other ETBs would be, let's see, Moonblessed Cleric. Valkyrie over here has a ETB trigger for angels. Yeah, whenever an angel or a cleric enters, so angels and clerics gain me double life. Custody would get double +1/+1 counters. Entomber Exarch would double trigger. Grave Shifter would double trigger. Aura's only on death, but that means I get to double trigger my smaller things. Teshar returns things for me casting historic stuff. Yeah, so I actually have he double triggers when he enters, so I get 2 5/5 demons. Yeah, I think I can abuse Panharmonicon a bit here. I think what I really need is a draw card. It's just like plain and simple instant speed draw card. Because draw is such an important... If there's one thing to learn about Magic is that drawing cards is never bad. Even if it's slowly killing you throughout the game, you want to be drawing cards because you need to see what else is in your deck just in case you can get rid of the thing that is hurting you for drawing cards. Drawing cards is one of the most important resources you can have. Certain decks would prefer to search for cards if they're like trying to combo, but overall, having a full hand of cards is scary for your opponents because they don't know what you could have in there, and it takes a pressure off of you because now you have like options. You never want to be sitting without options. I think Village Rites might be nice. But I'm trying to avoid cards that say sacrifice a creature, draw cards. I just want... As additional cost, you may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature. Oh. Plumb the Forbidden is actually really good. Never mind. I also... Yeah, drawing cards and a good amount of lands. Lands are iffy, but I think that's just from me playing for so long that I've messed with my ratio of lands a lot. But you want to figure out what the average amount of mana needed to spend on a card in your deck is. So in my case, it's about 3. Oh, it's exactly 3. Haha. So yeah, 3 is the exact middle ground of my entire deck. There's equal number above and below it. So I need at least 3 lands to play 1 spell, is how I should look at what this deck is. So in my opening hand, unless I have a bunch of 1 and 2 drops, I want to have 3 lands. That's the thing that's the hardest, I think, about Magic, is that it's so customizable to your own play style that you have to figure out for yourself what you generally like. Because Josh will tell you, first off, that he is willing to cut lands so long as he can justify it. I've seen him go down to as low as like 32 lands in a deck. That's 100 cards, so that's under 1/3 of the deck. Which most people try to stay around 35 to 40, depending on how high off the ground your curve is. But he'll cut till he can justify it no longer, and I'll be like, Josh, you need more lands. And he's like, no, I'll just mulligan for it. Which, it works for him. He's lucky like that. Me, however, I've only recently started playing with cutting lands and lowering CMCs really a lot, because I like bigger spells, I like flashier spells, I like doing huge intricate combos, so I need a lot of lands to do what I do, or I need a lot of ramp, so producing a lot of mana is integral to my strategy. This deck is very much akin to what I would send like Kevin's way, because he's better at figuring out what is helping me move forward versus what is just an extra card that I may not need, and he would be able to help me find what cards I could cut for more draw card, what cards I could cut for more tutors, what I could use in place of interaction I already have, what's superfluous cards that are better than others. So yeah, it's nice to get a second pair of eyes on a deck every once in a while, because if you build only to your strategy, then you might find that all of your decks either play the same or have the same flaw. Oh no, not the spam. Ignore the spam. Nobody wants spam. Alright. But yeah, I think this deck came out pretty well, considering like I kind of forgot I had it for the longest time, and I just started working on it out of the blue because I needed a deck to work on. So yeah. Thanks for coming out, and remember, untap, upkeep, drink, my friends.